Hey everybody, Travis Clater back with another strategic thought for the day. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am coming to you from outside of my home office. I am vaccinated and I'm doing my best to socially distance. So I wanted to get out and try this from somewhere else, even though I'm a little nervous to do it. But here we go. So I recently came across a story that's been making some headlines, and it's about an Associated Press reporter who was fired for, according to the AP, violating their social media policies. Now, we're not going to go into this specific story as it continues to evolve, but I'll include a link to that story in this blog. But it did get me thinking. For years, we've seen story after story about employees and company social media policies, and having led some social media efforts at large companies, I can tell you that it is crucial to ensure that you have an effective social media policy in place and that everybody understands what that policy is and why it exists. But so many companies are still, I can't believe I'm saying this, so many companies are still missing the mark when it comes to social media policies and meeting the expectations and, frankly, needs of their employees. And to be clear, a privately run company has the right to implement whatever social media policy it thinks is appropriate and right for that company. But that doesn't mean it should. As we've seen, oftentimes what a company can do isn't always what a company or brand should do. So the big question is, how do you find the right formula or create the right social media policies for your brand or for your company? Well, simply put, like always, there is no single way to ensure you're finding the right mix of giving your employees the ability to express themselves through these channels while still protecting the brand. And let's face it, you need to be ready to evolve because the political, the business, and the social media landscapes are evolving by the hour, not even by the day. But there is good news. There's always good news. I do have some tips for brands to think about when creating or reviewing their social media policies. Now, first is be open. Explain the reasonings and the position on your social media policies to your employees. If you have a specific policy, be open about why you have that policy and the thought process that went into making that decision or creating that policy. And it's not to justify why you have the policy, but rather to explain the process to your team so they understand why that decision was made and why that policy is put in place. And this is also going to help them adopt the policy and support the brand. Second, be clear. Ambiguity is the enemy to any policy, regardless of what it is. So the guardrails for social media policies need to be very clear. And it's not just clear for your leadership team, but they need to be clear for everybody from frontline all the way up to senior leaders. Talk with your team members and talk with your employees and be sure that they have a very clear understanding of the policies. Give examples where you can and allow them to ask questions about how that policy is implemented. Third, be consistent. From the top to the bottom of the organization, the policy needs to apply equally. You can't ask your frontline team members to abide by a policy that the leadership team doesn't adhere to. And it's been proven time and time and time again that the old do what I say, not what I do approach fails every time. If you aren't consistent in how you apply your social media policy, you're never going to get your team to sign on and abide by that policy and support the brand. Fourth, be understanding. It is a complicated world that your employees are trying to navigate. Frankly, you can't keep what's happening outside of the office from affecting what's happening inside the office. This means that you need to be willing to understand your employees' positions and empathetic to what they are trying to do with their social media activities. They have a reason for that, and you need to try and understand that. That's your role as the leader and as the brand. And to be clear, I definitely do not mean to sacrifice your standards or to sacrifice your brand for the sake of someone's desire to post on social media. That's not what I'm saying at all. But you do need to understand the situation before you make a decision on what your policy is going to be. If you make a decision without understanding the position of your team or of your employees, you're leaving out the most important part of your organization. Your employees are the ones that have to bring your brand values to life. So you need to think of them when you're creating these types of policies. And finally, be true. And what I mean by that is your policies need to align with your company values, period. If your brand values are focused on honesty and openness, then your social media policy needs to align with that. Having conflicting policies and brand values aren't only just going to confuse your employees, but they're going to confuse your audiences. And to be very clear, external audiences are absolutely going to detect when something is not aligned, and your brand is going to suffer for that. Creating the right social media policy for your brand or for your organization is super, super tough. But follow these tips and be willing to evolve that policy as you move forward, and you are well on your way. And there's your strategic thought for the day. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you check out tcstrategic.com for more posts, as well as to sign up for our newsletter. And we'll see you back here again soon.